Humans are fascinated by violence, and you've got to ask yourself why.
The rapid development of martial arts in recent years is present in all corners of the world. Boxing matches used to be eagerly awaited on TV, and today we can watch events from many different martial arts on the internet, which have become super popular over time. If you're a crazy fan of violence, every time you watch fights, the desire to finally start training is surely born in you. Today, like never before, is the best time to start fighting lessons because there are so many different learning ways available, making it easier to collect knowledge compared to a decade ago, and that is definitely something we should use. Combat sports offer benefits like no other. Discipline, combativeness, self-confidence, and humility are just some qualities that will begin to be reflected in your daily life after you start training. You'll realize that things have become easier because you've become tougher mentally and physically. To begin with, you need an inexhaustible will, a reliable gym, and a quality coach. All MMA experts will tell you that consistency in training is the key to success. Just make sure you show up in whatever condition you're in, and progress is guaranteed no matter how slow or fast you learn. The next step would be to decide which sport is right for you. Of course, the question is, what are your goals? Let's say you want to start with base sport and then move on to MMA like all the great fighters. Perhaps you're indecisive with a large selection of ways of fighting and are wondering what would suit you best. We believe this video can clarify things for you and help you decide because we will go over various martial arts and their characteristics, mostly those proven the most effective, while taking an example of how the big names of MMA started their careers. Because who knows better what the right martial arts path looks like than them? Wrestling. Let's begin with a look at wrestling, which has proven to be the most dominant base. Jon Jones, Demetrius Johnson, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Kamaru Usman, and Henry Cejudo are some of the well-known names who started their adventure with wrestling, although there are many more examples. Of course, they started from scratch, where they learned to focus on proper technique, how to shoot, body positioning, and level change. The basics of wrestling include moves such as double and single leg, which will keep you busy as long as you train because you can never be good enough for the basics. There are also high crotch, duck under, head and arm, etc. The rule for all martial arts is that you must first learn to defend yourself to spar or compete because attacking alone is not enough, and you can get hurt because of your inexperience. That is why you'll be taught escapes and reversals such as sit-out, switch, stand, and various types of pinning combinations. Technique, and just drilling techniques for beginners. It's that simple, and Firas Zahabi also says so.
Wrestling as an adult. Start with doing just technique. Start with doing just technique. Don't go live yet. Don't go live. Do 6 months of just technique.
If you're someone who wants to impose absolute dominance and be able to control your opponent while also loving hard work, then wrestling's the right step for you. It is referred to as one of the most intense combat sports because controlling someone else's body is no joke, and to succeed, you must first know how to control yours. The benefits are peak physical shape, removal of ego, and building discipline like no other. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. BJJ grapplers in close contact are an absolute nightmare, even for trained fighters. BJJ is an advanced grappling martial art whose main objective is to subdue your opponent with various submissions. The most beautiful benefit of this sport is the ability of a smaller person to overcome a larger person using technique and leverage. You'll also become more mobile, which is super healthy for your body. The practice of this sport was best described by Joe Rogan on one of his podcasts, briefly and clearly.
What's the practical use of jiu-jitsu? Well, if you and I were in a fight, that would kill you.
After all the popularity it has gained, it is even more ridiculous to talk about how effective the sport is, especially against one-dimensional strikers. Royce Gracie, Fabricio Verdun, Charles Oliveira, and Brian Ortega are some of the memorable names who started training BJJ before transitioning to MMA and effectively transferred their knowledge to the cage. If you're more brains than brutes, BJJ is the domain for you. And what we said about wrestling basics, the same applies to all other sports. Shrimps, triangle sit-ups, and guard retention are some of the basic things you'll have to settle for in the beginning. Although we know you'd be happy to skip it and start with sparring and submissions right away, do yourself a favor and don't be that guy. Take your time, listen to the coaches, watch John Danaher's video instructionals, and attend the seminars you can. You'll be surprised how quickly you have progressed. Learn how to deal with the person on top of you, how to stay calm under pressure, how to get out of an ugly position, and if you have to spar, do the flow roll in the beginning. You must know that BJJ is addictive in nature, and once you start, your whole life will revolve around it. But let us tell you a secret, it will be worth it. Judo. When we talk about grappling sports, we must not forget about judo. There aren't many judokas in MMA, but there are some who pass on quality knowledge, such as Ronda Rousey, Karo Parisium, and Kim Dong-hyun. This Olympic sport is over 100 years old and a great way to connect your opponent with the ground in every sense of that sentence. It works on the principle of power use of energy with similar benefits to BJJ in wrestling, where a smaller person can take down a bigger one with the help of technique. It's like mixing wrestling with BJJ because you'll be trained to take down your opponent and finish him off with a submission. It's a particularly intense and difficult sport that will bring you full body fitness, good balance, and dynamic cardio exercises that will turn you into a muscle powerhouse, making your body strong but mobile and making your mind build heavy armor in terms of mental toughness. Judo techniques are divided into throwing techniques, grappling techniques, and vital point striking, and you have free sparring where you can drill all this with your partner. Khabib Nurmagomedov, who's a top wrestler, says this about judo.
Which is better, judo or wrestling, in your opinion?
I love wrestling, judo, high level.
Judo's high level.
My opinion, judo is class.
Combat Sambo. Before we step into the striking sports section, we'll use another top sport that is a combination of hitting and hugging, which is Combat Sambo. Most indestructible Dagestani, such as Islam Makhachev, Khabib with the entire Nurmagomedov family, and Magomed Ankalaev, are practitioners and, in most cases, world champions in this skill. Its origins are based in the Soviet Union, and it has proven to be a great base for cage fighting. There are several types of Sambo, each designed to aggressively prepare you to be effective in any fighting situation. The sport uses a variation of punches, knees, and kicks with all of the grappling, holds, and throws from this sport. This means if you're torn between grappling and striking, going to Combat Sambo practice will probably hit you. If you're wondering what its advantage over the other sports is, remember in 2013, young Khabib went on stage with a shirt that said, "If Sambo was easy, it would be called Jiu-Jitsu." Given that it was said by an undefeated man who finishes black belts with a white belt in grappling competitions, who are we to say otherwise? Boxing, kickboxing, and Muay Thai. We don't want our hardcore boxing fans to think we skipped over their sport because it's not effective. True, boxing has its beauty in footwork and evasive movements, angles, dodges, and slips, which are not so applicable when kicks are involved. But related to our topic today, why box when you can throw in kicks right away? We also know that some people don't like it when you confuse Muay Thai and kickboxing, but hear us out. Although kickboxing is based on punches, knees, and kicks and is essentially an evolved form of boxing, by that logic, Muay Thai is an evolved kickboxing. In case you started with boxing, you can very easily make a transition to sports that include kicks. Why ignore the use of elbows and knees when you can be armed to the teeth with the use of 8 limbs? If you're a person who likes brutality, blood, and causing serious bodily harm, then striking sports are for you, especially Thai boxing. Muay Thai styles are divided into Muay Femur, Muay Khao, Muay Mat, Muay Thai, Muay Farang, Muay Sak, Muay Mud, Muay Plum, and Muay Bao. As you can see, there are styles for everyone's taste, and it's up to you to inform yourself and see which style is best for your character and way of fighting. Joanna Jedrzejczyk, Donald Cerrone, Cyril Gane, and Valentina Shevchenko all found their way to MMA after winning Muay Thai titles. Sometimes fights do not go to the ground, so your knowledge of stand-up fighting is required. With enough Thai training, you'll feel at home there. Your reflexes, flexibility, strength of the cardiovascular system, and pain tolerance will be enhanced. And if you devote time to drilling takedown defense, you'll become a killing machine. Chopping legs with low kicks and opening cuts with elbows on your opponents will definitely be the fun part of your journey. Karate and Taekwondo. Some people favor throwing kicks instead of punches and might start their journey to MMA with sports like karate or Taekwondo. And yes, they also include punches, but with more attention to kicks. Just be smart and choose effective styles like Shotokan and Kyokushin Karate. Lyoto Machida, Stephen Thompson, GSP, Bas Rutten, and Yair Rodriguez were smart enough to choose more brutal approaches to these sports that prepared them for the cage. Coaches at your dojo will teach you effective striking techniques, distance, footwork, and looking for holes in the opponent's defense. In these sports, there are many types of kicks that you will not find in kickboxing or Muay Thai. While these have an emphasis on power, karate and Taekwondo use speed and agility. However, if your ultimate goal is to get to MMA, many experts will say that there are much better sports to start with. That is true, but it won't hurt to put on a kimono every now and then and kick off with a partner to hone your technique. Like each of the above, this sport has its beauty and charms, and accordingly, Bas Rutten, a former heavyweight UFC champion, loves it and is sad he didn't enjoy it more. Many laugh when these two sports are mentioned in topics like this, and it becomes less funny when they fight with a fierce and skilled black belt. The bottom line is that you can't go wrong with karate or taekwondo. MMA. We've reached the end where we talk about MMA. Look at each sport individually. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, but each is attractive in its own way. We don't have that much time to master all these sports, but you can always start with MMA, where you will learn almost everything we've mentioned so far. As time passes by, the world is becoming full of MMA gyms, and each one will cover tricks from BJJ, wrestling, and striking to make you a complete fighter. Completeness is a very important thing that is more pronounced today than before. In the past, fighters came from each martial arts field separately, while today they come skilled in all parts of this game. We need to keep up with the times. Real MMA gyms and coaches don't only teach each sport individually, but they will teach you how to wrestle against the wall, fake striking to enable takedown and submission, dominate your opponent on the ground, and also make you feel what grappling looks like when your opponent hits you in the face in the process. And believe us, it's much trickier than ordinary grappling. However, it will develop your war tactics and fighting IQ to be ready for every possible scenario in the fight, wherever it takes place. Hand on heart and respect for other sports, but still, MMA is the most realistic representation of the fight. Self-defense. Of course, there are always those of you who don't want to be a competitive fighter, but to have more self-confidence and learn how to control an escalating physical situation. Maybe you don't even have access to an MMA gym, but there are gyms near you where the mentioned individual sports are practiced. Let's say you can choose 2 skills that will help you in self-defense. What should you choose? It would be best for you to choose 1 striking sport and 1 grappling sport. The street is always dangerous and unpredictable, and the best solution is to defuse the situation. If that's not possible, top experts recommend the smartest move is to run away. A street fight brings trouble and, most of the time, nothing good. You don't know how many attackers there are or if they're carrying any weapons. Even if you win, you might sustain an injury, get hit with a lawsuit, or face jail time. Of course, there's always a chance that you're backed into a corner with no other options but to fight like your life depends on it. A good starting point for self-defense is boxing or Muay Thai. Throwing kicks on the pavement is always tricky. You can slip, and the last place you want to be is lying on your back. Boxing techniques will help you quickly remove the aggressor, and in the case of close contact and clinching, which is a common occurrence on the street, your elbows and knees from Muay Thai will come in very handy. In a surprise attack, you should think about what will happen if the fight goes to the ground. Judo, wrestling, and BJJ are the answer.
Best martial arts for self-defense.
For sure, jiu-jitsu. Yeah, for sure.
Wrestling?
I think grappling, I should say. What judo as well, especially in a cold climate. If you get someone who's got like a heavy winter jacket on, my God, like judo is an incredible
Plus
martial art.
concrete.
That's the worst place to be, with a heavy winter jacket with a judo specialist, and you're standing up with them. Oh my God.
If you're a judoka or a wrestler, you can take down your opponent effortlessly and thus control him on the ground, at least until the police arrive. If you're a trained BJJ practitioner, you can always choke your opponent and thus incapacitate him without injuring him. Save your life without a lawsuit and leave the aggressor uninjured. Gordon Ryan said fighting an unskilled opponent is like playing with a child. Even if you never have to fight, having the knowledge changes the way you carry yourself with confidence that others can feel and respect.